Hi, welcome to the F1 Time Portal, a Formula One history podcast started by two Formula One addicts. I'm your host, Rosa.
And I'm your White Rabbit host, Luigi. And today we're taking you back to the second part of the 1967 season. So let's go.
You're going to explain White Rabbit, aren't you, Louis?
Yeah, obviously that song is from 67.
Yep.
And it's an awesome hippie song. Like it's really of its time.
Okay.
And do you know the song yourself?
Yes, I do. Yep.
Yeah, so sung by Jefferson Airplane, which became Starship. Which did that song in the 80s. You know, we built this city on rock and roll.
Yes.
So it's that same band, but this was like this is the beginning of their career, and that Starship song was the end of their career.
Oh, so that's a shame. I love that song. That is an iconic 80s hit as well.
It is, and White Rabbit was an iconic 60s hit.
Oh, they were around for a while.
Yeah, they changed. I mean, okay, how many of the people were from the 67 band and the 85 band?
One.
Maybe one or two. Yeah. I mean, they changed their name so many times, that band. Yeah.
Well, that's very much like Formula One teams.
Yeah. The Lotus. What teams are at the McLaren team? The McLaren team of 67 probably has 0 people.
That's right. Exactly. And they look totally different to what they did back then.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
But still iconic in every era.
That's right. And the DNA is there from the very beginning. Yeah.
So good on you for linking it to Formula One. Or did I just do that?
You did that. Yeah. I was just talking about a song and a band that I liked. You forced it in. One of them could have been into Formula One. You never know.
Never know.
We're not going to dig that far. So we're up to the third race of the season, of the 67 season. And as a quick reminder, we've seen Holm nearly win the first race and having that brake fluid thing. And then we had Holm winning the second race. So he's on a bit of a charge, and he won his first race of the season. And unfortunately, we saw the passing of Bandini.
Yes.
So this is the Dutch Grand Prix at Zandvoort on June the 4th, 90-lap race, 17 drivers attending, a 3x2x3 grid, and the weather was overcast but dry. So the big news at Zandvoort was the arrival of the all-new Lotus 49 with the 3-litre V8 Ford Cosworth engine.
I feel like we should have that music, that dun 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 dun. Dun. I'm not going to sing fanfare music.
Yeah.
I feel like we should have fanfare music here. This is very exciting.
Yeah, remember Loredana had that special ability?
Yes, she did.
We just have not evolved this podcast. No. We're just a boring talking podcast.
That's right.
So I know there are some cool ones out there that put those really cool sound drops in.
Yes. Yeah.
This would have been the time to do our first proper one.
Yeah, absolutely.
Are we going to do it?
No, I can't sing.
Yeah. Broom, broom. We go broom, broom together. Let's do it together. 1, 2, 3 to represent the Ford Cosworth.
I'm not even doing that.
No, you're not doing it. Okay. Okay. So it's hard to not overstate how big a deal this was. The Ford Cosworth engine really shaped Formula One for decades from this point. And everyone get used to a team name that's something like team name Ford Cosworth. That's going to be for the next 20 years of this podcast. So get ready.
Except Ferrari, Louis. Ferrari will never say that. Will never have this engine. They'll be Ferrari.
Yeah, I mean that's where Ferrari stands alone.
Yeah.
They always have a Ferrari engine.
Yep.
Yeah, that's a very interesting reference point, isn't it?
I think they stand on their own in that regard.
Yeah, I don't think that. I mean, remember we had some of those unusual teams in the early 60s. We had Cooper Ferraris,
yes,
remember, and Lotus BRM and things like that. But no, Ferrari have never. He would never allow another engine in his car. Can you just imagine? Yeah, and his DNA lives on because can you imagine a Ferrari, the number one Ferrari boss saying, "This year we're going to go Renault engine." Can you imagine?
He would get
people
sacked
on the street. The people on the street in Italy.
Yes, he would get sacked on the spot.
No, but he would not only get sacked. I think someone would assassinate him. You know what I mean? I think that would happen.
That's a big call. But
it is a big call. But I think it would be close. He'd need security 24/7.
Yeah, they don't call them the Tifosi for nothing. That's like an irrational fan, like the hyped up fan. Exactly.
So anyway, let's stay on track. Ford Cosworth is here. So other teams got into the engine action with Brabham unveiling their new BT24 chassis. Ferrari, a brand new Tipo 312, and I've got a very soft spot for the Tipo
well, it's
312
here.
car series.
Yes.
Yeah. And BRM, a lighter and slimmer P83 and a lighter Eagle. So let me just check. Monaco was in May. When was this race? June. So 1 month later.
Yeah.
Yeah, they really got their acts together, didn't they?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah. What do you have to say about that race of the 312?
Well, I think it is, like you say, I know that it is going to be a big move for Ferrari. Hopefully it gets them, like they're in a very quiet period of their hopefully that 312 starts seeing some results, which in the next few years. So.
And it looks like a beautiful car. Actually, it's one of the more beautiful Ferraris.
Yes,
and
it is.
Not many people rate it for some reason, but I like it. I think it looks really cool and different. So,
yeah, I'm guessing not many people rate it because it doesn't do very well on the track.
Not now. In the future, it will do well without being a spoiler. But hey, I can say that about Ferrari all the time because they're ebbs and flows, right?
Yeah.
They're always going to do well at some stage in the future. So by the end of the practice sessions, Team Lotus were very happy to see Hill take pole position with the new Lotus Ford. Gurney took a surprising second in his Eagle Westlake and Brabham third in the Brabham Repco.
Wow, Hill. That's really good. What about Clark, his equal number one?
Yeah, Mike Lang's little friend. Yes. Well, he was not having a good time as Hill in the new Lotus, so he was actually only lining up in 8th.
Gosh, they seem to be taking it in turns, Hill and Clark.
Yeah, I mean, maybe this engine is more suited to Hill's driving style. Who knows? Anyway, so at race start, this is interesting. There was an official standing between the two Coopers on the second row of the grid. So many of the drivers needed to take evasive action to avoid him.
What? How does that even happen? FIA or CSI or whoever you are right now? What do you mean some guy standing on the track, on the grid?
It's just phenomenal, isn't it? If there's a positive out of this, that official had the very best view of a Formula One race start, probably of all time in history. You know what I mean? It doesn't get much better than that, right?
No.
And I also wonder what his pants look like. Because
you have to go down that track, Luigi.
Yeah,
you have to mention his pants.
Can you just imagine? Can you imagine? It's hard to...
I don't understand what he's doing there in the first place. How do you just stand in the middle of the grid?
It may not be his fault. He may have been doing what he was needing to do, but it was someone else that started it on him. So we're blaming that guy for being there. He was probably meant to be there, but someone else
just started the race.
Waved a flag. They waved a flag and off you go. And, they didn't
I can
see
imagine in today's Formula One, that would be like the most exclusive paid ticket you could get. I want to stand in the middle of the grid.
Yeah.
That will cost you $3 million. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Easy. And a special field around you to protect you from
That's right, exactly.
certain death that would happen.
Maybe in today's Formula One, you'd hover just over the top of the cars.
Yeah, that's right. I think that's true. And if they couldn't guarantee you safety and you had to physically stand there and risk it, I'm talking 2024 here. I'm going to say something controversial, but I want to be behind some drivers, not in front of them.
Yes. No, that's not controversial. That's just common sense, Lloyd.
Yeah, so I want to be behind Stroll, Sargent.
You'd put Perez in that Magnussen.
Yeah. Just to make sure I don't die, I don't want to be at their mercy. So, yeah.
Okay.
Sorry for those fans that were highly offended. The reality is, where would you stand?
Exactly.
How much do you love your driver that you'll stand in front of them at the start of a race?
Yes.
Yeah. So to the actual race itself, Hill got off to actual great start from pole and was leading to the first corner. And he even quickly built up a lead of almost 2 seconds over Brabham in second. So Hill's really saying, I want to be number one too, So he's the equal number one, remember? Following Brabham in a tight bunch were Rindt, Gurney, Eamon and Clark. and Gurney was an early retirement with his Westlake engine suffering from a fuel metering problem.
More fuel issues.
Yeah.
Wonder
And a
if-
new part, fuel metering. I don't recall that.
I don't recall that one either. No.
Yeah. And it's their new lighter car, remember? So probably they took some bits out of the fuel system.
That's right.
Yeah. So Clark was now running fourth. So he's doing not too bad for, what is it, eighth, I said?
Yeah.
Having overtaken Eamon in the Ferrari, with Holm close behind Clark in fifth. So at the front, Hill was maintaining his lead over Brabham until suddenly, on lap 11, there's the Ford Cosworth debut, Hill's engine cut out due to camshaft problems. So that's a pity. This left Brabham in the lead, but a little further back, Clark was getting into his stride in that all-new Lotus 49, so the same car that Hill just retired in. Clark then passed Rint on lap 15, and it just took a further lap for Clark to then overtake Brabham, so he was really on a charge. And he started to just pull away.
Wow, Clark's back. Good to see. Pretty good for eighth on the grid in a new engine, new car.
Yeah.
Like this is why I like Clark. Like he's just got that talent. He's like the car whisperer.
Yeah, he is actually. So at half distance, it was Clark, Brabham, Rint, Holm, Eamon, and Stewart. Cooper were not happy when Rint retired with poor handling, just as his teammate Rodriguez retired with a broken gearbox.
Yeah, like poor handling. Surely that's something you can just adjust to as a professional Formula One driver and keep going. Like it's not like that's just like, oh, this is too hard. I'm going to stop now.
Well, this is the thing. Is that poor handling Mike Lang taking having a go? Because if a team says, "Oh, he's retiring because of poor handling," that's like throwing your driver under the bus.
Yeah. We have to be careful. That's true. We're just seeing it from Lang's point of view.
But you're right. Poor handling would be a reason to retire if it was real bad.
Well, if it was actually affecting the performance of your car
and your safety.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So let's say it's.
We'll give him the benefit of the doubt.
Politically poor handling.
Yes.
Yeah. So the race didn't have much to report on other than Clark ended up winning the race by 23 seconds in front of Brabham, who was second, Holm in third, Eamon fourth in the Ferrari. So, that Ferrari's sort of starting to wake up a little bit, especially after the tragedy of the last race.
Yes.
So there were actually wild scenes in the Lotus pit, which included Keith Duckworth, and of course, who's one of the two founders of the Cosworth team, engine, and of course, Colin Chapman, the Lotus team boss. So the mere fact there were wild scenes, this win meant a lot to Lotus. They went through a horror time with that H16 engine last year.
Yes.
And they've just won their debut with the Ford Cosworth.
Yeah, that's huge. That is a massive achievement.
Yeah. In the era of everything failing times.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so to the championship standings then, the Drivers' Championship standing, we've got Denny Holm in the lead on 16, Rodriguez on 11 and Jim Clark now on 9. Mm-hmm. On the constructor side, we've got the Brabham on 18, the Cooper on 11 and Lotus on 9.
Yeah, Lotus Ford, we might need to start saying that.
I have to say Lotus Ford, Lotus Ford on 9. Yep.
Yeah. Okay, so and Denny Holm's just getting points all the time, isn't he?
He is.
Like leading the championship by 5 points. And Rodriguez, the number 2 Cooper driver, has all the points. I just realised, because Cooper's got 11 points, second place, and they're all Pedro's points.
All Pedro's, yep.
So they might have to start rethinking their number 1, number 2 thing, because they said Rint was finally number 1 and the number 2 is showing the way. So, yeah. So we're up to the 4th race of the season, the Belgium Grand Prix at Spa. The date is the 18th of June, 28 laps. So this is not the same Spa we have today. This is the longer version. People might think, oh, why is it only 28 laps? Funnily enough, the Spa today is only 44 or 45.
Yes.
So, anyway. 18 drivers, a 3x2x3 grid, and the weather was warm and sunny. So we start with the Lotus 49 and Clark, continuing his amazing form at Zandvoort. And at this circuit, Spa, he was setting some phenomenal times in practice. And Clark is awesome at this track.
So that's a nice word there, phenomenal. Is that yours or is it Mike Lang's?
It's definitely Mike Lang's because I tend to use the word awesome.
Okay.
So Mike Lang, that's a Mike Lang word. So he's definitely showering Clark with some praise there.
Yeah, let's not forget that Clark was not a big fan of this track. Remember, right at the start of his career, there was that race where there were multiple accidents and quite a few, deaths. And you know, horrendously, the drivers who had passed away were just literally laying on the side of the track.
Yeah, pretty disgusting.
That's just disgusting. And that really scarred him, Clark, from this track. And he does say a lot of times in his career up to now that he didn't like it at all, but he just keeps winning here.
Yeah, so weird, isn't it?
I reckon he's due for another one now.
Let's see. Seems like it. The phenomenal time set by Clark pretty much turned into pole positions, not position, and not unexpectedly, with Gurney again up there, second in that Eagle, and Hill third on the front row.
Wow, we finally got both Lotus drivers firing at the same time.
Yeah, that Ford Cosworth, it's starting to show what it's got. So surprisingly, the Brabhams, who had been so reliable, especially Holm, qualified 7th and 15th due to the engine not putting out enough power. I mean, this is a pretty power track, you know, and Holm suffering handling issues on top of that. So to the BRM team, well, we haven't talked about them too much because obviously we only talk about the teams that are sort of up there. And Jackie Stewart's in that team. I'm sad about that because I'm a massive Jackie Stewart fan.
Yes, yeah.
To the BRM team, the H16 was actually more reliable and was actually performing okay, but that only put Stewart up to 6th. So I guess this is the type of track that enables the H16 to maybe run more freely.
It is so funny that they're happy with 6 though. Like
yeah.
And I think knowing what we know about Stewart in the future, I don't think he was personally happy with that. But I think maybe his team were happy that they just didn't, blow up.
Yeah.
Any lap they finished was a good lap.
Yeah, that's how desperate they were. So on Sunday at race start, Clark was virtually unchallenged as he basically led the field to Eau Rouge, due in part to Hill getting stuck on the dummy grid with a flat battery and Gurney not being in gear when the flag fell earlier than he anticipated.
Whoa. Is that 2 nonsense starts? Although a flat battery is not Hill's fault. But how do you get a flat battery like just before the race? Yeah. They leave the lights on overnight or something.
Yeah, that's exactly it. They left the lights on. Formula One cars don't even have lights, but they've got metaphorical lights, like symbolic lights. Yeah, that is silly, isn't it?
I just can't believe it. Anyway, and then Clark didn't get a flat battery.
No. I imagine when Clark took off and it's like he didn't see anyone side by side with him. He looked in the mirrors and probably saw this massive gap because he saw his 2 rivals just not moving.
Sitting on the grid.
Yeah, I mean, that's probably every Formula One driver's dream, isn't it?
Yes, exactly.
Have no one next to you, just look in the mirror.
Start.
That's a dream, yeah. So there we go. So and Gurney, what did he expect with the flag? How much longer or shorter was he expecting?
What was he watching? Like, don't you watch the flag?
And why didn't Mike Lang call out the nonsense of it all?
Yeah, exactly.
He's like dropping the ball. I'm curious to see if he does. If the era of him calling out nonsense starts is over, but we're keeping it going.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, so we'll call that a double nonsense. So up the hill, they went with Clark leading from Rint in the Cooper, Stewart in the BRM. So he's up to 3rd now because of that little disaster. Parks is now driving for Ferrari in place of Bandini, and the rest, except who's in the pits getting a new battery.
So much for both Lotus drivers firing at the same time.
Yeah, well, you might be speaking too soon. Let's see. Parks then slid on some oil and crashed heavily. So his Ferrari overturned, and after being thrown from the car, he actually sustained a broken leg and wrist, which would unfortunately end his Formula One career.
That's too bad. I mean, it could have been worse, as we've seen. But he had a very short F1 career, and some of our listeners may remember that he earned pole position in the 1966 Italian Grand Prix, driving for Ferrari.
Yeah.
I guess if you're going to get a pole, doing it in Italy in a Ferrari is the place to do it.
Yeah, I mean, he would have been, if it was a Saturday to Sunday transition, which I'm assuming it was, he would have been top of the world for that night.
Exactly.
Yeah. So at the front of the race, Clark had a clear lead over second place Stewart, and Eamon was now third in the other Ferrari, just ahead of Rint in the Cooper in fourth and Gurney in the Eagle fifth. Hill retired on his third lap with clutch trouble, but
Poor
who knows
guy.
where he was? Yeah, he never got started. Really, did he?
Yeah, he was probably like you say, being lapped. But battery issues, clutch issues. That Lotus doesn't like him very much.
No, yeah. So we're only at the 10 lap mark, mind you.
Hey.
Yeah, so this was a 28 lap race from memory. So Clark was very much in full control with already a 20-second lead over Stewart, followed by Gurney, who was 30 seconds clear of Brabham in fourth.
Wow, there are some big gaps in this race starting already on lap 10.
Yeah. Well, some drama as soon after Clark charged into the pits to replace a disintegrated plug. So he rejoined the race in 7th place.
Oh, well, that joyous celebration in the pits at Zandvoort must seem like a distant memory now to that Lotus team. They've got nothing but trouble.
Yeah, it's like the bad old days.
Yeah.
Back again. But they've got this exciting new engine.
I know.
Yeah. So Gurney also went into the pits complaining of low fuel pressure, but he did not stop. And he was able to rejoin behind Stewart, who was now leading the race.
Hang on. So he went into the pits complaining of low fuel pressure but didn't stop.
Yeah.
What? He just wanted to drive through the pits for some moral support or something.
Yeah. See, Gurney, it's his own team. He wants to do things differently.
Well, Holm did it first. He drove through the pits asking for brake fluid.
But maybe there's nothing he could do about the low fuel pressure. I don't know.
Oh, okay.
I don't know. Why?
Why?
Those are the words in the Mike Lang book, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So why? Interesting. Maybe he didn't know. Like Holm was better at diagnosing he had brake fluid issue. Maybe Gurney didn't know nothing could be done for low fuel pressure. Maybe he drove through screaming low fuel pressure and drove through, thinking that they'd fix it when he came back somehow. Because I don't know how low fuel pressure works.
I don't know. Neither do I. It's a fuel problem again. Yeah, fuel pump.
Yeah, it's a fuel problem.
Yeah,
some fuel pump, I'm sure. Yeah. Anyway,
so he's just driven through. Okay.
Driven through, just for a listening ear. So more drama followed, though, as Clark again needed to pit to replace another disintegrated plug.
Are these plugs made of? Chalk? What disintegrates?
Yeah.
Ash? Wax? I don't know.
And disintegration...
That's a big word.
That implies to me that it's in the engine area. I understand how the plug cylinder system works and all that, but disintegration tells me there's bits floating around that engine.
Yes.
You know what I mean? It doesn't sound good. It sounds like it's only inevitable that something's going to else break because there's microparticles of spark plug everywhere in the engine.
That's right.
So,
hey?
Yeah. Mm.
How many plugs are there? It's like lots, isn't there?
Yeah, I think there's one spark plug for each cylinder head. So if it's an 8-cylinder, it must be eight spark plugs.
Right.
Yeah, so he's lost 2 already.
This might be a long race for poor old Clark.
Yeah. And lots of bits in that engine to clean up after. So at a similar time, both Holm and Brabham retired on consecutive laps with scavenge pump trouble.
Okay. All right. I think we just move on. I don't know. We just.
It's short. It's quick. Let me say what it is because it's a new part.
It is a new part. We've had so many new parts this season.
This is the season of new breakdowns. So scavenge pump. I had to look up what it was. I've never even heard that term before. It's a pump used to return oil to a tank for cooling, purification, or storage. I think before it gets recirculated back into the engine. So the scavenge pump failed.
So pretty much, he was either running out of oil or he was overheating.
Yeah.
I think Mike Lang's just gotten more technical. Maybe his little sidekick graduate person's doing a bit more research.
Yeah, and they're like an engineer.
Yeah,
so they're
exactly.
They're digging into what they know. Like a hammer, everything looks like a nail sort of thing.
That's right.
So when Clark rejoined, he was starting to have trouble. So that's the 2 Brabhams out, which is a real pity. They've been super reliable this year.
Yes.
When Clark rejoined, he started having clutch trouble. So this is after the double disintegration thing. and then could only select third and fifth gears. Well, there you go. I'm sure those little bits were getting into the gearbox.
That Lotus is falling apart. But if anyone can drive a car like this, it's Clark. I still have hope.
Yeah. So the drama's not over, because then Stewart started to have trouble with his gears and was soon driving one-handed as he had to hold the gear lever in place. So this allowed Gurney to overtake the BRM of Stewart on lap 21.
Okay, so this is 28 laps. Okay,
yeah.
So he has to drive one-handed for 7 laps.
7, which is probably 30% of the race, roughly.
Yeah,
25, something like that. At the finish, Gurney was over 1 minute clear of Stewart, giving his Eagle team what was to be its one and only championship victory.
Yeah, that was a bit of a spoiler, Luigi.
Yeah.
It was a solid inherited win, really. Where did Clark finish with all of his dramas?
Well, yeah, I'll get there. So Stewart was second, Eamon was third in the Ferrari, Rindt was fourth, and Clark ended up finishing sixth. So he managed to finish.
Ooh.
Stewart did well to come second driving one-handed.
One-handed, yeah.
Not bad.
That Ferrari came third.
Yeah. And Rindt gets his first points of the season to finally help the Cooper Maserati team in the championship.
Yeah. Okay. So on to the championship points. We've got Denny Holm still on 16, Rodriguez still on 11. Chris Amon, though, has shot up to 11 as well, and Jim Clark is on 10. On the construction side, we've got Brabham Repco on 18, Cooper Maserati on 14, Ferrari on 11, and the Lotus Ford on 10.
So that is race 4, right? And this championship on all fronts is open.
It is.
Really, because, I mean, even Dan Gurney in 5th is only 7 points off the lead in the drivers.
Yep.
And in the constructors, it's 8, 9. Oh, 8, 9 points.
9 points, no different.
Between first and fifth.
Yes.
So, yeah, this is really unusual.
Very
Even
close.
up there, and all he's done has been getting scrappy points. You know what I mean? And he's he's second place and not doing too bad. So, yeah, interesting season so far, isn't it? So, we're up to the 5th race of the season of the 11-race season. This is the French Grand Prix. This is going to be interesting, this one. It's Le Mans, but not as we know it, and we'll go into that in more detail. The 2nd of July, 80-lap race, 15 drivers, 3x2x3 grid formation, and the weather was warm and dry. So this is where we get into some of the politics of this Le Mans circuit, because there were political and financial pressures that led to the French government, or not the French, I think the French organisers, Yeah, being held at Le Mans instead of its normal location. I can't remember where it normally
Usually
is.
at Reims, isn't it?
Is it? Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is not the famous Le Mans circuit, but on a degenerate Mickey Mouse circuit named after the car manufacturer Bugatti.
Quite a harsh description of the circuit there. I'm guessing that's Mike Lang teeing off.
Yeah, he doesn't often tee off, does he? But then when he does, he goes for it. Like Mickey Mouse, the degenerate Mickey Mouse is pretty heavy. Yeah. So they are not my words. We don't often see Mike go for it, and it's like the opposite of British bias. It's like he's obviously anti-French bias.
Yes.
So I wonder if Clark had a go at this circuit. So Mike took it up to a few levels and was backing his main man. So Clark was probably having a go. So Mike really leaned in on it. You know?
I don't see Clark having a go. He just didn't seem like that kind of guy. But anyway, this track was built as a racing driver school circuit the previous year. So maybe Mickey Mouse is the right terminology for it. It included the pits of Le Mans, but the rest of the track ran through 2 car parks and was full of like really tight turns and short straights.
You know, why didn't they just use the Le Mans track?
I know. I don't know.
Why didn't they? Yeah. They had to do this hybrid Mickey Mouse thing. So this is also opening up my mind to like car parks and F1 tracks don't have the best history. And I do recall that the Turkey F1 race was much loved, and that was on a car park.
Okay.
And then there was also Las Vegas in the early 80s. That was also in a car park in one of the casinos. And that was also not loved because I think the track was breaking up. It was a car park. It wasn't a racing track tarmac. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Isn't the Miami one in a car park now, today?
If it is, they've done a pretty damn good job of making it look good. Yeah.
But I can feel that one of your special episodes, Luigi, will be F1 tracks on car parks.
Yeah, I wonder if we could even do a car park champion. Like, I don't know if any driver really wants that.
Hey, that is next level nerd. I don't know.
Okay, so to this race, there was only one Ferrari driver and both McLaren and Honda were missing due to a lack of engines.
Oh.
So, yeah, that McLaren team is really erratic
struggling.
this year.
Yeah.
So as a result, McLaren himself entered as a driver for the Eagle team to back up Gurney.
That is so funny. Like today we see McLaren as one of the leading teams, so many championships. And see how tough it was back in the day starting up with his own engine.
Yeah. His own team, you mean?
Yeah, his own his own team and his own engine. Like he's building his own is it his chassis that he's waiting for?
I think he's waiting for the chassis.
He's waiting for the chassis. Oh, that's ready, right.
Yeah.
And it's just so funny that a driver gets to drive for another team. Like that would never happen today.
And the way it's worded, it's like he's helping Gurney out.
Yes.
And Gurney's probably like, hey, you're a good driver. You've won races. Yeah, come on in. Yeah, join in.
That's right.
And they're just having great times and, probably had a lot of fun doing it too and probably learnt a lot of tips, how another team runs, So Hill and Clark couldn't take part in the first practice session as a Lotus transporter was held up by customs officials at the border. This is like the second time this year that Lotus has had problems.
It is. Yeah, maybe the French officials heard that Clark attacked the track.
Yeah.
Maybe. But that was I don't think Clark would have done that.
No, it's a concept and it's funny.
Okay.
And I'm going to take that joke to the next level. And say that the customs officials got wind that Clark had attacked the track and that Mike Lang would write about it in the future in the 1980s. And that's the reason they held the transporter up.
Okay, that is taking it all the way, that joke.
It's got time travel.
It's got time travel in there. Those French officials knew what was going to happen in the 80s.
Yeah, they're very good. They're very professional. So, yeah. So despite all of this, Hill was still able to set the pole winning time. So this is your Hill, number one driver at Lotus, in subsequent practice sessions with Brabham second and Gurney third.
Well, that Gurney's doing really well in that Eagle. He's been on the front row for the last 3 races. Yeah. And he's sharing that front row with 2 world champions. That's pretty good.
Yeah, and let's not forget, if he'd stayed with Brabham in 66 instead of starting his own team, I'm guessing he would have been a 66 champion himself instead of Brabham. So therefore he could have made an old champion front row.
Yeah.
So that's just a subjective opinion, of course. So, and that can't be validated in the TP championship because you can't talk about if that driver was there.
In another team. Exactly.
Yeah. So the remainder of the grid was Clark in 4th. So he was still up there and McLaren in the other Eagle in 5th.
Yeah. We got Hill and Clark at least close to one another now.
Yeah, true. So to the race on Sunday, it was the Lotus 49 again, which led the field with Hill taking full advantage of his pole position. He was closely followed through the car parks by Gurney, Brabham and Clark. And I'm waiting to say, and he got the best park. I just want to say it, and with aiming up to 5th from 7th on the grid.
Start by that lone Ferrari. So again, I'm assuming followed through the car parks. That was Mike Lang's words. He's still sticking the knife in there.
Oh, he really is.
He's not happy.
Track.
Yeah,
that is totally Mike's words, and it's Mike's truth. And because we respect his terminology, we embrace his stance on the track. So it's cute when Mike
it is.
expresses himself because he doesn't normally do that, right?
Aye.
So to the race, Brabham overtook Gurney, then Hill, and by lap 2, the Australian was actually in the lead. So he's finding his zone, right? Gurney then slipped back and was stuck between Hill and Clark.
So even though that Eagle does really well in qualifying, it doesn't really have the race pace. Even the race he did win was kind of lucky.
Yeah, and remember he's got that unusual Westlake engine, so
Yes.
he basically, I suspect he's trying to do a Jack Brabham. If Brabham can get this
Yes.
unique Repco engine, I'll do a Westlake engine,
Yes. Yeah.
and he was rolling a dice, I guess.
Yep.
But I'm sure everyone's looking at that Ford Cosworth right now. Clark then went on a charge himself, and then he overtook both Gurney and Hill and moved up to second place.
Fuck.
Yeah, so he wasn't done because on lap 5. He then took the lead. This is a very eventful first 5 laps, isn't
Yes.
it? So Clark's in the lead. Soon after, Hill also passed Brabham, and the Lotus pair put on a show for the French crowd and simply left the rest of the field in their wake and were now fighting for the lead.
Okay, now we're talking. 2 teammates in a great car battling for the lead. Remind you of anything, Louis?
Yeah. Yes, many battles over the years. And I know you're talking about Senna and Prost, infamous 88, 89, and 90, but they weren't in the same team
Not
then.
in the same team.
And that's a spoiler for the future. And isn't it interesting now that Lotus is up in the front, Mike Lang's not digging in on the circuit anymore?
No, that's right.
Circuit's suddenly looking a bit all right. So, unfortunately, in this case, things don't last for Lotus because Hill then coasted to a stop with a broken crown wheel and pinion.
Oh, not again, and not the crown wheel and pinion again.
And you wouldn't let me explain that last
we're
time.
not going to do it.
Now I'm going to ask you to do a quick recap of what it is, or you don't want to tell you? Because now that I didn't explain it the first time, you're on your own now.
Yeah, no, I'm still saying it's leave that to the Teco podcasts.
Yeah. But didn't they learn from the other race?
No.
Didn't they strengthen it?
You'd think so.
So the Lotus drama was not over because 9 laps later, more disaster struck as Clark headed to the pits to retire with the same problem.
Damn. I was really looking forward to that battle between Clark and Hill. In the same car, Anyway.
It's sad because this car, they were 1-2.
I know.
The same problem. Was it that team that had that crown and wheel pinion, or was that another team that had that issue? I can't remember. But even if it was another team, that should have been a red flag to them.
It's a red flag.
Check ours.
Yes.
Yeah, so there's no excuse. Yeah. So the ever-reliable Brabham and Repco were now back in the lead. So remember, Brabham was in the lead at the start with Gurney hot on his heels. These two were half a minute ahead of Eamon and Holm, who were themselves battling it out for third place. And they were constantly changing positions over and over.
These 2 guys, New Zealanders, are always battling each other. I wonder if one is from the North Island and the other one is from the South Island. I wonder if there's any kind of, animosity there. But it's funny how they keep coming up against each other on the track.
Yeah, and both in leading teams and on the podium. Yeah. So now we're at the halfway mark of the race only, and Brabham started to pull away from Gurney. His engine was misfiring. His Eagle engine was misfiring, and Gurney, unfortunately, eventually retired on lap 41.
Oh, poor Gurney. He was doing so well.
Oh yeah, I mean he was doing well. I mean he wasn't really meant to be in second place. Remember, but those Lotuses went out, but still he was up there.
Still he was there.
So this promoted Holm up to second place, as he had now put the McLaren in its place, as in behind him. However, Holm was by now 50 seconds behind the leading Jack Brabham. Eamon, the other New Zealander in the Ferrari, who we have barely we've barely mentioned, finally got up to third place. But then his throttle cable snapped, ending his race, which put Stewart in the BRM up into third place, someone who we've barely mentioned this year. So after a dominant but unreliable showing by the Lotus drivers, we end up with Brabham first, Holm second, and Stewart third.
And those Cosworth engines, they're fast, but not very reliable yet. Do you think, Louis, at this point, the Lotus team are thinking they're going, oh no, we've got another H16 on our hands?
Yeah, you know what? It could have been, but they did win the first race.
They did win on their debut, but that could have just been lucky. Like
the one that Clark got last year with the H16. That's
right, exactly. Yeah.
The reason why I'm saying no is because I don't recall the H16 winning on debut. In fact, I recall it being a train wreck.
It was a train wreck right from the start.
and eventually reliability will come with this engine.
Yeah, but you only know that in hindsight. Like at the time, they might be thinking, shit, what have we done?
You know why I think though? Because the H16 was like 2 V8 engines.
Yes,
and because of that, it was heavy and complicated.
Yeah.
The mechanics were probably constantly pulling their hair out dealing with things. But this Ford Cosworth was a V8. It was a simple engine.
Yes. Yeah.
And so I guess what I'm saying is they may have thought there's some good bones with this thing.
Yes, they probably didn't. Yeah, they didn't freak out as much knowing that they had a good, solid concept in the design.
Yeah, like when you think of the H16, they probably had to change. Like we talked about one spark plug. I hope I'm right about that. One spark plug per cylinder, right? 16 spark plugs.
Yes.
Every time you change a spark plug, it takes double the time.
Didn't it have like 9 fuel tanks as well? Like
that's
it was just crazy.
Yeah, that as well.
Yeah.
So, I think they knew they didn't have a H16 is what I'm trying to say.
Good. All right. So on to the championship standings. In the drivers, we've got Denny Holm on 22, Jack Brabham on 16, Rodriguez on 12, Amon on 11, and Clark in 5th on 10 points. And on the constructors, we've got the Brabham Repco on 27, Cooper Maserati on 17. I'm really surprised at the Cooper Maserati up there. BRM on 11, Ferrari on 11, and the Lotus Ford on 10.
Yeah, I agree. It's like no one's stepping up.
Yeah.
And they just happen to still be in second because no one else is really trying to be in second.
Right.
So, yeah.
All right. Well, that's the end of part 2. We might leave it there and come back for the next part next time.
Okay. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Okay, bye. We have a Patreon.
Yay. We're a professional podcast now. So it means a lot to us if you are able to support the F1 Time Portal podcast.
For a small monthly fee, you not only get ad-free podcast content, you will also receive special episodes that are exclusively uploaded for our Patreon financial supporters.
We promise at least 2 additional exclusive episodes each month aligned to the decade we are up to in the show.
And you will also be able to make suggestions about any special episodes you may want us to research and present. We can't promise that we can do all of them, but we will consider them.
So, if that sounds like an entertainment bargain to you, go and sign up at patreon.com/F1 Time Portal today.
If you're enjoying our podcast, please tell your friends and non-F1 friends alike.
Yeah, and don't forget to rate us 5 stars or whatever highest is available on the podcast platform that you use.
We have a range of social media handles for you to connect with fellow listeners, so look up F1 Time Portal on all the usual platforms.
Or visit us at www.f1timeportal.com or email us at f1timeportal@gmail.com.
We would like to give credit to our primary reference materials, a series of books called Grand Prix by Mike Lang.
We also use many other written and digital references, which are in our show notes.
Thank you for your support.
Thank you.